abuse of power scandal, and the petty retaliation of the supreme leader on Channel Escandre. The story begins with a bleak picture of Lee Jae-myung's leadership style as he executes a comprehensive pressure campaign against the heads of public agencies. Instead of demonstrating the stature of a head of state in foreign affairs, Lee Jae-myung is described as an alleyway bully or a local gang boss when handling domestic affairs, specializing in nitpicking and brutally suppressing subordinates. This pettiness was clearly exposed when Lee Jae-myung publicly complained during a work report session that, despite his directives and reminders, there were still public agency heads who refused to obey, and he demanded that the minister take immediate disciplinary measures. This spiteful attitude shows that Lee Jae-myung is obsessed with absolute power control and does not accept any dissent or independent compliance with procedures from subordinates, turning the administrative apparatus into a place that knows only fearful obedience. The main target of this fury was quickly identified as Lee Hyuk-jae, currently serving as the president of the Incheon International Airport Corporation. Lee Jae-myung harshly criticized the minister responsible for managing this figure, asking why a subordinate was allowed to run wild like that and stating that if they just swallowed their anger and let it slide, where would national discipline be? Lee Jae-myung's words might sound like an attempt to restore order, but in reality, they carry the tone of intimidation and personal revenge. The peak of this illegal intervention occurred when Lee Jae-myung's presidential office directly called Lee Hyuk-jae's side and ordered a ban on personnel activities. They issued an irrational directive that no important positions could be appointed. Only personnel matters for grade 3 and below could be handled, and all nomination lists had to be reported to the presidential office for approval before implementation. This action was fiercely resisted by Lee Hyuk-jae because it seriously violated the enterprise's autonomy and current legal regulations. This crude intervention made the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport, the direct supervising agency, tremble with fear as they continuously received messages expressing extreme displeasure from Lee Jae-myung. The fact that Lee Jae-myung intentionally tied Lee Hyuk-jae's hands in management shows that he wants to turn state agencies into his own backyard, where every personnel decision must get the nod from his inner circle, regardless of competence or procedure. Faced with this suffocating pressure, Lee Hyuk-jae made a bold decision to hold a press conference right at the National Assembly to expose the true face of this oppression. He revealed that since mid-December of last year, he had continuously received calls in the name of the president's will to block the appointment of managers and demand a switch to a temporary authority regime until a new director is in place. Lee Hyuk-jae's resistance did not stop at denunciation, but was also a steely challenge. Dismiss me if you want, instead of using dirty tricks. He recalled the painful lesson of the past regarding the Ministry of Environment blacklist case, where former Minister Kim Yoon-kyung and Secretary Shin Mi-suk were imprisoned for forcing public agency heads from the previous administration to resign. Citing this legal precedent was a sharp warning shot from Lee Hyuk-jae, implying that those currently abusing power will also eventually have to face justice. The deep root of this feud was revealed by the narrator through a past event where Lee Jae-myung questioned Lee Hyuk-jae on why he couldn't control the smuggling of dollars abroad by hiding money inside books. At that time, Lee Jae-myung, with a mindset obsessed by the Sangbangwoo Group's illegal remittances to North Korea, assumed that people also used the method of hiding $100 bills in books to smuggle money and scolded Lee Hyuk-jae for being incompetent. However, Lee Hyuk-jae's realistic answer that checking every page of passengers' books would paralyze the airport humiliated Lee Jae-myung in public due to his lack of understanding of actual operations. This embarrassment turned into a grudge, leading Lee Jae-myung to find every way to persecute Lee Hyuk-jae, even though his term still lasts until June 19th. Unable to fire him immediately for fear of breaking the law, Lee Jae-myung chose the path of mental torture and isolating his opponent's power, revealing a petty and vindictive leadership character. The story does not stop at the airport incident, but expands to another context demonstrating Lee Jae-myung's lack of governance capability during a working session with Foreign Minister Cho Hyun. Instead of focusing on macro issues, Lee Jae-myung interrupted the minister to scold the camera crew for filming only the speaker and not the documents on paper. He even nitpicked about who was holding the documents and demanded they work with more heart. This action was likened to a homeroom teacher or class monitor shouting at students rather than the demeanor of a president. Even when hearing reports about diplomatic staff misconduct, he grilled them on when it happened and warned the minister not to hide anything. These trivial details accuse Lee Jae-myung of having absolutely no strategic thinking, caring only about minor formal errors to show off his authority. Based on the escalating conflicts and Lee Jae-myung's vindictive nature portrayed in the story, I predict that in the near future, Lee Hyuk-jae will face surprise audits or fabricated charges to smear his reputation before his term ends. Lee Jae-myung will not leave a person who dared to publicly challenge him at the National Assembly alone, and will mobilize the media machine or loyal investigative agencies to find any loophole in the management of Incheon Airport to legitimize a dismissal or prosecution. However, this action will be a double-edged sword because it will provoke underground resistance among civil servants who are terrified but also deeply disgruntled by this gangster-style behavior. Officials at the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport and other agencies will begin collecting evidence of illegal verbal directives to protect themselves. And these will be ticking time bombs for the Lee Jae-myung administration in the future. This story is vivid proof of the danger when supreme power falls into the hands of a leader lacking stature and possessing an excessive pettiness, threatening to destroy the professionalism and neutrality of the national administration. Can Lee Hyuk-jae hold out until the end of his term, or will he become the next victim of political fury? And is the legal system strong enough to stop these blatant acts of power abuse? What do you think about Lee Jae-myung's nitpicking and retaliatory leadership style? Please leave a comment below for us to discuss. And don't forget to follow channel ESQ Andre for the next shocking updates.